The following is a live broadcast of a Lone Star community radio program, recorded and broadcasted live on irlonestar.com, Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and facebook.com/irlonestar. For more information on this show, please visit our show page at irlonestar.com/shows. To sponsor or donate to this program, visit our donate page at irlonestar.com/donate, or email us at lscrstudios@gmail.com, or give us a call at 936-666-1084. Lone Star Community Radio production and broadcast is possible by folks like you. So sponsor and donate today.
Hey, this is Skippy from Mornings with Lone Star with Dick and Skippy. You're listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe, and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Hi, this is Tony Collins, and you're listening to the Legal Connection Show here on Conroe. And we host the Legal Connection Show every week on Tuesday at noon. My co-host, Cheryl Ellsworth Jahani, is here today with us also. She is going to be on her phone, though, because and feeding in with us this way to co-host, because she had a painter show up at her house, and that's the kind of station we have. That's the kind of show we have. We keep on making fun of it, and she's not, but I am. I just keep thinking of that song. She has a red door, and she wants it painted black, and I can't get it out of my head. So sorry about that. Anyway,
but it's not black, Tony.
Oh, it's not? But
no, it's wood.
Okay, but it wasn't red to begin with?
No,
okay.
It wasn't. It's just that song, Tony.
Okay, I'm being dumb. Anyway, we're on FM 104.5, FM 106.1. You can get us on Facebook. You can listen to us on the internet. And just last week, I was talking to you about this earlier today, that we had a show on the MDX contract, tracing contract that was the 200...
MT, Mary Tom... xylophone,
MTX contract tracing.
That contract was awarded by the state of Texas. It was a $295 million contract just for the state of Texas, and it was privately bid. I think there were only like 5 bidders, and MTX was one of the groups.
And they were big bidders. They weren't just little nobody places. They were big. They were like Facebook giants, the IBMs or whatever, people that actually had done this before. And then go on. What do we know about it?
And then MTX picked up a couple of contracts. I think they got one from Oklahoma too, but they've never done anything like that.
Right, nothing that they had finished. No history of success.
Ever. And, our listeners may remember Grant Bynum, who started Open Texas, who is, that's a Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group, so you have to be accepted into the group. But he's also my brother. He started that. And Grant is the one that blew the whole lid off of the MTX contract for the contact tracing. And they actually had a demonstration outside of their office building. I think it was over in Plano, Texas, right outside of Dallas. And Grant said that these they just rented some office space, and it was no one was there. There was like one employee. Their employees, I believe, are from India.
Right.
They're supposed to be the company that's collecting all of our Texans' personal information. And it was quite a stink. And
when
Grant
they did
was able to bring
the protest, are you saying that the day that they did the protest would have been a normal work day and nobody was there?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. We do know that if you go to, if you Google the MTX contract tracing and just put it in there, and you can put Grant Bynum or whatever, just put that in there, though. Grant has a little video that he did showing that within, I guess, 3 weeks from the date that they set this office up, there was nobody in it. It's just a little 1,500 square foot hole in the wall. They don't even have a sign out there. And what's critical to our listeners, and why we're talking about right now, is that Governor Abbott granted this $295 million contract to trace people that had COVID under an emergency order, and he didn't go through the vetting process that you normally would, or let the legislature get involved in it to approve it. And so we learned that 5 of our Texas representatives. One of, I think Stephen Toth is a representative here in the Spring Woodlands, Conroe area. He is one of the 5 representatives from Texas that have sued Governor Abbott to cancel this contract because it wasn't vetted properly, and they felt like it's not constitutional. And of course we agreed because we did a show on it. But the reason that even came up is because we had that show got picked up by Newsbreak, and it got thousands and thousands of listeners and a lot of feedback because it was important. And so when we give our call on where you can find us, it's not just some little thing. It may get picked up nationally, and that one did.
Yeah.
So
because it's important, and it's not just Texas. There are several other states that contracted with this group, and it's unbelievable to me how irresponsible people are that are in our government that are in receipt of $295 million.
And I love Governor Abbott. I love this guy. I mean, I think he's been so he's been so on point, and everything he says has been so reasonable. But this, I don't know what, this one didn't seem reasonable to me. I can't go along with it. Of course, we won't know until the lawsuit. We may not have all the information, but based on the information that we do have, there was no emergency that could not have gone through maybe an emergency session with the legislature and with any vetting process. Now, we don't know that one wasn't done, but the people that are involved in it, our state legislatures, the representatives, they're saying they didn't know about it, and they would know. So that so be following that. I don't have the federal case number, but it came up. It was in the paper, and then I looked it up briefly, and I've asked Representative Toth to be on our show. So let's see where that goes. I'd like to hear what his take is on it.
Well, Tony, was that filed in federal court?
In federal court,
or state court?
In the Southern District, right here in Houston.
Okay.
So, it's federal, and anybody, and I'm kind of stumbling through this, those records are public. Anybody, any listener can actually get into the federal system, and we've talked about how to do that on our shows before, but you can get in there and actually read what's filed and what their allegations are and follow the case. It's always fun and interesting. I wish I had a little bit more time. I have too many cases I'm working on right now to follow that. But I think that if we get Representative Toth here, he'd be able to explain it maybe in short order, and I don't have to go read that. So crossing our fingers that he answers and we can get him on our show. Well, today's show is hopefully our final show on Stand Your Ground and
Second Amendment, Stand Your Ground,
and how it's associated with what would you do in a situation where you felt like you were under invasion, in different circumstances, and having a gun, not having a gun, and how that may be you're affected with your homeowners association. So we're going to hit on that. And where we left off last show is we were talking about Stand Your Ground law. And do you still have that in front of you? If you don't, I do. Do you want to tell us about what Stand Your Ground is?
I don't.
Okay. Well,
I can talk about Stand Your Ground.
Okay.
Stand Your Ground is that in some states, I think there were 30 states, maybe 35, that do have Stand Your Ground doctrine. And what it basically means is that you have no duty to retreat. Like if you're in your home and you are under invasion, you have no duty to retreat even if you can.
Right.
And then there are other states that have duty to retreat laws if you can retreat to a
safely,
safe place.
Right.
Yeah, without hurting anybody with a gun or something like that.
Then you don't have the defense
to do that.
of Stand Your Ground, right, or the Castle
Exactly.
Doctrine. And just in a nutshell, the Stand Your Ground law allows people to use deadly force against someone else if they feel they are in danger. Conversely, it prohibits an individual from arguing self-defense if they provoked a threat from someone else. So you can't invite somebody over and say, get out of my house, I'm going to stand my ground. You can't be the instigator. But certainly, like the couple that we talked about last show in St. Louis, if you feel like you're being attacked and we have this self-defense, then that is a defense, and they should not have any action against you. And
right.
So what we had gone on, and in Texas, we are a Stand Your Ground state where you don't have the duty to retreat. And so you could use deadly force if deadly force is being used against you or you feel that threat. And because it is up to you as the person that is responsive to it, in other words, standing your ground, you have an uphill battle of showing proving your self-defense, because that's an affirmative defense.
That's
So
right.
you can't just go get your gun and be like, yeah, I'm gonna save my house or my car or whatever. And stand your ground applies to your car too. If somebody, just like we were talking about in Austin, if somebody walks up to your car and points a gun at you or threatens you, and you've got your concealed carry or you've got your gun hidden in your car, and you have access to it, you have a right in Texas to defend yourself with the same force. So if someone's holding a gun to you and you have a gun, you can shoot them. If someone's holding a knife close to you and you have a gun, you can shoot them. But I still say, and we've gone over this before, that get your wasp spray. That's the best thing. You don't want to kill somebody. I guess I kind of have that sort of that. I'm trying to interpret the Bible doctrine as "Thou shalt not kill." That if in doubt, because you don't know if this person's crazy or not. Maybe they don't have a gun. Just maim them for the moment, and wasp spray will do that. Temporarily blind somebody. Okay, so here was where we left off last week. We gave a scenario, and we're going to have you kind of think it through so you can answer these questions. And since you're my co-host, I'm going to ask you, and you're going to be like our listeners. All right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's midnight and you awaken to strange sounds. Someone's outside the front of your home. You get out of bed, grab your firearm, run to your front window, and look outside. Now, let me just stop and ask you this. Have you ever done that? Is that something that you and your husband have ever experienced? You and Sam?
Well, I mean, we've been close. I mean, I remember one time we lived in a big old house, and there were some kids. They climbed
The
up
mansion
on the back
next
of the,
to, what was his name?
Ross Perot.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
That
that
one?
was a different
Okay.
house. That was a different. This was another big
This is
house.
the mansion in Boulder or the one in Colorado?
In Colorado. Yeah, I remember getting a gun. Sam wasn't there that night, but some teenagers had climbed up on the balcony, and they were right outside my bedroom door. And I got the gun and looked out and saw them and waited for them to leave, because I realized, it was this really nice house and well known in the community, and they were just being stupid kids, daring each other. So they climbed up the spiral staircase that was right outside the bedroom, and they were right there, but then they did leave.
Okay, so that's what you're supposed to do. You did exactly the right thing. You had a level head. I'm scared.
Yeah.
I hear something. I've got a gun, but let me, from my own, castle, so to speak, let me look out and see what's going on before I get crazy here. And you saw it was just a bunch of teenagers, and they
There
did.
were like about 4 of them, and I mean, it was scary, but they were giggling and laughing. I didn't get the feeling that they were menacing or treacherous.
Right.
They were probably high or something. I mean, it was Colorado.
They're just high. Colorado, yeah. Well, they still have that. What can I tell you? Jim is afraid that more laws are going to pass in our next election to allow more states to have, to have pot and various other drugs. And so he's, I guess we're looking into more of our auctions because he thinks that
About
drugs.
doing what?
Well,
Leaving
because he
Texas?
thinks that we're close because that's the trend. And that he's fearful because when people are on drugs, they do dumb things. They are not
but we're talking about marijuana, though, Tony. That's not. That's
but he's just fearful, and so. But you're right. In Colorado, they just got the marijuana thing going. That's where all my clients want to go when they're on probation. When they can't, because on probation you can't leave your state that doesn't allow it to a state that does. That's just not how the system works. Finish your time first. Okay, so here to finish my story, or to finish our scenario, that's when you see a masked man in your front yard peeking into your car and looking around for security cameras. What can you legally do to stop him? Do you have to let him steal your property? Let's change it up a bit. What if the sound turns out to be broken glass from your front door and you walk into your living room only to discover your front door wide open? You hear someone moving in the next room. You know your wife and child are still in bed and asleep. What do you do? That's a completely different scenario.
completely different.
Somebody's in your
so
house.
let's answer the
broken
first one first.
Okay.
So you're looking out there in your driveway, right?
Mhm.
And they haven't broken the windows on your car yet?
Right. They're just peeking in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, so we're in Texas, and so I guess what can you do? It's on your property in Texas. I think you can shoot at them.
No, well,
I mean, I would do that. I would yell.
That I need to look up because you can defend your property, but you can't use more force than they have. And he's peeking in your car. He's not threatening to shoot you. So
exactly. And you don't even know if he's going to steal your car. It just looks like he's going to.
Yeah, maybe he's just, peeking in to see if there's something good to steal in there, and he's going to go to the next door neighbors. And we already know.
Well, so what's your answer?
Well, I don't know the answer yet because I'm not through the scenario. But I will say, without looking at it, if as a criminal defense attorney, somebody's peeking in my car parked outside my house, I'm not shooting at them. I guarantee I'm not even.
Me neither.
I'm not doing anything. I'm making sure my security cameras are on, and I'm taking a lot of notes. I'm probably getting my cell phone to record them. But I'm not in fear of my life, maybe my property, because I might be instigating something where my life might be in danger. If he's just peeking in my car and I startle him, he may be wanting to take out anybody that's going to, because he's got a criminal record, he doesn't want to be taken in. He may come after me at that point. So I'm just watching quietly. And in this scenario, I wouldn't do anything. And I think in Texas, you may have the right, if it's after dark, to shoot somebody that's on your property. But this is not what I would do. And it's certainly not going to be, your defense is not going to be stand your ground. It may be another law. All right. But let's see what we have to say about this. Now, the other scenario is when somebody has broken into your house and there's broken glass and they're in there and your family's asleep. That's completely different in every way. I think you have a right to, at that point, it's kind of iffy. You don't know if there's deadly force, but certainly they've broken into your home. And the law that allows you to protect your home in Texas when it's after dark certainly is going to let you go after somebody that's broken your door down. But deadly force, I'm still having a problem with this particular issue. I don't think you got a stand your ground case unless you can see a gun or you've been threatened with a knife. And that's when I say the wasp spray comes in handy. It goes 40 feet and you can blind somebody. But you don't know if they had a gun, that gun is probably going to be more efficient than your wasp spray. So I hear somebody breaking in. I'm still sneaking around the house, and my wife and child, my husband and child are asleep. Children, I'm going to protect them by all means, but I've got my wasp spray, my phone. At this point, though, if they've broken in, they may have cut your lines because that's what people do.
Well, Tony, that did happen to us one time when we lived in the big house in Dallas. Mm-hmm. We had some construction going.
You're breaking up.
So we had police officers breaking in, stealing Sam's wallet and stuff like that. Uh-huh. We had to get off-duty cops to sit there all night long. But one time, after the add-on, the built-in for the kitchen was done, they had sabotaged one of the window contacts for the
they had created a thing where they could get in. Okay.
Yeah, and so one night in the middle of the night, our alarm went off, and this alarm was quite the alarm. I mean, it sounded like the fire department alarm. And sure enough, we go into the kitchen, breakfast area, and the window's open, and the screen is off, and someone was just trying to come through that window, but the alarm scared him off.
Oh, good. So you had, like we have right now, we have ADT, and we've got, like, silent sensors. They're not videos within the house in all areas, and there are some videos, but, of course, we can't say that because we don't want the burglars to know where they're at. But those sensors, right, if there's movement, when you've set it so there shouldn't be movement, will set off an alarm. But we've got like, oh my gosh, ADT is, we've got, if anything were ever happened to us, we've got so many security cameras and systems. We don't have one. We have a backup to the backup. So we will definitely
get you. That's what happened. The contact at the window was sabotaged, and when they put their foot on the window to come in, the motion detector got them.
Okay. So you were safe. Did they leave? What happened?
Yeah, they ran off.
Okay, good. You have to worry about that, too, because we watch a lot of murder mysteries. Not that I've never represented anybody in this scenario, but a lot of times if you're having work done on your house, then it could be a subcontractor of your contractor, somebody you had no control over, coming into your house and taking note. And if you live in a nice place, they're coming in. People do strange things when they need money, So that's, but this is why we are doing a show on Stand Your Ground. What can you do to defend yourself if this happens? So what did y'all do? You didn't see anybody, and so there wasn't anybody to...
We didn't see anybody. We had the window repaired. And
did you have a security camera to see who it was?
I don't think we had cameras at that house. No, we didn't, but we knew who it was. It was the contractors.
Okay.
Or their workers. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So here, now that we know what we would both do in these situations, here's the following part of our little, law school scenario. These are frightening scenarios we hope you'll never face, but we want you to understand the potential criminal consequences that you, as a responsible gun owner, could face if you use force or deadly force to defend against certain types of crime involving property. Remember, many states strictly forbid the use of deadly force to protect your property. Not Texas. We're not one of those. Okay. Criminal consequences. Let's look at the potential criminal consequences if you decide to confront these types of perpetrators with force or deadly force. And as we said last show, Texas Penal Code Section 9.41 explains that a person is allowed to use force, but not deadly force, to terminate a mere trespass or interference with property. All right. So, and I wonder if a mere trespass is when somebody has broken into your property and shattered your front door and has entered. That's not, to me, a mere trespass, because
no, that's be
burglary.
Breaking and entering.
Because
that's breaking and entering.
Burglary is when you have trespassed or broken into a home with the intent to commit another crime, whether it be rape or
and
theft
night.
or robbery.
Isn't it at night?
Doesn't have to be. No, that doesn't even have to
night?
be at night. No. Burglary is any time that somebody breaks into your property, whether it's a car, because you can burglarize a car or home, with the intent to commit another crime. And so if they go in and after the investigation, they can prove that there was a theft or rape or an assault, and that's how a lot of my criminals get in trouble. Is they're not really criminals. They're entering their ex-spouse's or their estranged spouse's home, and then that spouse claims that they wanted to assault them and that they had fear, and you don't have to even touch somebody to have fear of the assault or whatever. And that's how they get them on burglary. So this is more than a mere trespass when they can show that there was an intent, okay? But the Texas Penal Code 9.41 is about trespass. And trespass is really easy. It's kind of scary, but trespass occurs scary for you and me, because we could be trespassing with no intent to trespass. Anybody could, based on this law. Trespass occurs when a person enters onto a property knowing that the entry is forbidden or remains on the property after being told to leave by someone with authority. So that means that if your friend invites you over and then you get in a fight with them and they say, well, I told them to leave and they didn't, they're going to claim trespass when they invited you over. It turns into a trespass after you've been invited if you've been told to leave and you don't leave. Maybe you didn't believe it. Maybe you didn't hear it. So that's kind of iffy, and the police kind of know how to kind of glean through that, but that's what trespass can be. Theft or interference with property occurs when a person takes another person's property with the intent to deprive them of that property without the owner's consent. And then you've got a gray area again, because what if it's a friend and it's your phone, or you think it's your phone, or you lent them something and they're giving it back, and then there's a lot of things that can change the climate of whether it's trespass, theft, or interference with property. So using force or deadly force, these things can just change depending on who's saying what and when. All right, but that's not what our show's about today. The show's about there's a legitimate criminal involved here, and they're trespassing, or they've committed a theft, or they've interfered with your property. Now, going back to our example, if you grab your firearm, go outside and fire a shot at the trespasser or somebody merely creeping around your yard, you will likely find yourself facing a serious felony, okay? So the answer here is don't do that. In these circumstances, Texas law only permits the use of force, not deadly force. Now, I know that there's another law in Texas that if somebody comes onto your property at night, you have the right to shoot them, but you're still looking at trouble if they come onto your property and you threaten them with deadly force, even though they're up to no good. So don't be relying on stand your ground, because that's just what happened to the St. Louis couple. I think they had every right in the world with the pandemic and people coming onto their property and breaking down their gate and threatening them to have at least the same amount of force, because these people had guns that were coming through the St. Louis community. But they got arrested and charged, and now they've got legal fees and they've got problems because their district attorney decided you threatened those protesters, and you even if you didn't directly point at them, you had a gun and they felt fear, and so now we're going to charge you with I think it might have been felony assault or dangerous weapon or whatever. It was a felony, though. A felony is serious, whether you're in Texas or in Missouri.
St. Louis, right.
St. Louis. So these people got a felony charge against them for the exact same sort of scenario, but not exactly. There was a pandemic and these people were threatening them.
But Tony, they didn't use deadly force. They brandished a weapon to protect their property, but they didn't use deadly force.
But they had the threat of deadly force, and so that's what they're saying. But, I agree. I think they had every right to be out there with their gun saying, hey, I'll use it if you don't get off my property. And because these people had guns too. if the St. Louis couple had security cameras that were, and they may have, we haven't gotten this far with these facts yet either, that show that the people within that crowd, any one of them had a gun, then they're completely off the hook, because I believe Missouri is a stand your ground state. Okay, now what if the trespasser sees you, but instead of running away, he comes toward you with a weapon in one hand and your property in the other? It's important. I think that's very different. It's important to note that this is no longer a mere trespass. It has quickly changed to an attempted murder or an aggravated robbery. The distinction is important when we discuss the use of force or deadly force, because if you choose to use deadly force and fire upon the perpetrator, your conduct will likely be justified in this scenario. Now, remember, the starting point for using force or deadly force in Texas can be boiled down to two things: reasonableness and immediate necessity. Very important. Is it reasonable, and is there an immediate necessity? In the case where you were looking out your window and you saw the kids, was it reasonable to first look out the window? Yes. Was it reasonable to shoot a bunch of kids that you didn't know what they were doing? No. So that was the first prong. You did the right thing. You just watched quietly because they didn't know you were watching. Immediate necessity. There was no immediate necessity because they weren't up and in your house. They didn't have anything in their hands. So yes. And you said that this one happened in Dallas, so this would have applied to Texas law. So in reasonableness and immediate necessity, keep a cool head. If they're looking in your car, if they're peeping around your property, if they're walking to your property, those two prongs are the first things that you want to think about if you're cool-minded. Now, so when can you use deadly force in Texas to protect your property? In Texas law allows you to use deadly force to protect your property if you would be justified in using force and you reasonably believe it is immediately necessary to prevent the imminent commission of specific enumerated property crimes. These are arson, burglary, robbery, aggravated robbery, theft during the night, or criminal mischief during the night. So that's very broad.
Yeah, no kidding.
Criminal mischief during the night leaves the door way open, because you had criminal mischief at night with the kids that were, laughing on your property. That would fall into it. But then it would also be your burden to prove that you were reasonable and it was an immediate necessity. I think you may have had a case there, because here you are, a woman with 6 kids. You had 6 kids at the time, right? Okay, so here's a crazy woman who'd had 6 kids. I see. I would think you'd be Catholic.
And you would have to. No, and you would have to actually prove that you're not crazy for having 6 kids.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Just because you have 6 kids,
right.
Yeah.
Right
I had a
away.
lady at a nail salon ask me one time if I had mental problems.
Yeah. Well, I mean, immediately I'm thinking, well, it's because she's Catholic. And then I found out you weren't. And I'm like, the day will come and I will convert you and you will be Catholic. I know you say no, but I know it's going to happen. It's me and Mary, and we're praying the rosary every day for you. Okay, so turning to the second example, we discussed early the sound of breaking glass and finding your front door wide open. It is very likely that you've discovered that the imminent commission of one or more of the crimes that we just discussed, where Texas law allows for the use of deadly force, can be used. The bad guy is no longer a mere trespasser, and his conduct is elevated to the point where he is probably committing or attempting to commit burglary or worse. So at this point, you actually could use deadly force. So, but don't be.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and when you've got these people like we were seeing on the murder or the Dateline shows and all that stuff, where they try to make it after the fact look like deadly force, don't be doing that. The truth will set you free.
Yeah.
Don't be making. Yeah. I see this even with my own, not my own clients, but people I've represented in divorces and in other domestic situations. They try to make it look or sound worse than it is, and then they just make it worse on themselves, because now you've got a lot of bad things going on. They're liars, you're liars, they're bad. So no, just leave it alone, document it. If you've got get it under control. If the person is left, immediately call the police and protect your family. I mean, you'd know. I think instinctively you'd know what to do next, or you hope you would know what to do next. Okay, recovering property. Let's take both examples one step further and address a common question we're asked. What happens if I discover the criminal already has my property and runs away when he sees me approach with a firearm? What can I do to recover my property? when it comes to using deadly force to recover your stolen property, Texas juries have a 3-step process to decide if you were legally justified. So you can't go running after him with your, jewels in your hand, in his hand, running with your gun at this point. Okay, but let's look at the 3 steps, because I'm mad. He's gotten away with it, and he's not going to get away with it. He's running away with my stuff, and I caught you, and I want it back. And this guy's a fast runner. Okay, here are the 3 steps. The jury must find that you are justified under Texas Penal Code 9.41 to use force to stop the trespasser or an interference with your property. All right, so you'd be justified if he was running away with your crown jewels and you didn't have insurance on it. All right. Number 2, the jury must decide whether you had a reasonable belief that deadly force was immediately necessary to prevent a perpetrator from fleeing immediately after committing a burglary, robbery, aggravated robbery, or theft during the nighttime. So I'm going to read that again. The jury must decide whether you had a reasonable belief that deadly force was immediately necessary to prevent the perpetrator from fleeing immediately. So the jury's got to decide that, I guess it's kind of what's going toward, you could shoot the perpetrator if he's got your property in your hand. They've got to decide that but would it be reasonable to use deadly force, let's say, to prevent the perpetrator from fleeing? Well, yeah. I guess at this point.
Well, I think the law in Texas, though, is that you can't. You can use equal force, and you can use a lot of force to get your property back, meaning you can punch them and kick them. I mean, but, the example that you're talking about is a good one, because here in our hypo, we've got a man breaking into our house, stealing stuff, and then we as women, we're supposed to chase him. Well, how in the heck are we ever going to catch him,
Well, I mean, we've got a gun, though. We could shoot him.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
And maybe that would be part of your defense.
Okay, so we haven't gotten to step 3 yet, but the second prong is you had a reasonable belief that deadly force was immediately necessary to prevent this thief from fleeing. So this is on your side now. The jury's got to decide that as a woman holding a gun and you're watching them stealing your jewels that are not insured, and it's $100,000 worth of stuff, and you know it because however you know it, you can see the little bag in his hand, and of course now you're going to hope that the bag is still in his hand and you can't put it there after you shoot him dead. But there's reasonable belief that you had to stop him with deadly force because he was running fast and he had a gun, but he wasn't facing you. This is kind of like the Burger King guy over there in Kentucky, except for I don't believe that burgers, or what. I don't think this guy had anything in his hand. This wasn't a robbery. He was just trying to get away because he had a criminal record.
Well, what he had in his hand was the taser of the cop, right?
That's right.
The one you're talking about?
He did steal the police officer's taser, and he wasn't running away. But I don't know what the law is in Kentucky or whatever state that was. But
wasn't it Atlanta? Was it Atlanta?
I think it was Atlanta. But here, if this were Texas, this is saying, did that police officer have a reasonable belief that he needed to use deadly force to prevent this guy that's running off from the Wendy's from taking his property? So far, the police officer is, he's got 2 out of 3. So he's looking good if he were in Texas because he's trying to recover a stolen property. All right. Now, here's step 3. The jury must find that when you use deadly force to protect the property, you reasonably believed it could not have been protected or recovered by other means, or using something less than deadly force would expose you to a substantial risk of death or serious bodily injury. All right, well, even in those terms, the police officer will prevail in Atlanta. Because this is saying that...
Well, did you hear about the thing that happened in Austin a few days ago, that Ramos, his name was Ramos, the cops shot him and killed him as he was driving away?
No. We talked about it, but terrible. I didn't know what the story was. What happened?
The 911 got a call that somebody was sitting in a gold Prius, and they were smoking crack and making meth or something like that. They said the guy was in a white T-shirt, and they described the car. So, 7 cops showed up. And this was in Austin, a week ago.
Yeah.
It was right after the guy got killed in the protest. He was shot by an Uber driver, the protest.
And then just to interject, I'm listening to the story as a criminal defense attorney, someone that would represent Ramos. I'm wondering, how would they know that they were smoking crack or doing meth if the windows were up, unless the witness was close enough to smell it, because I don't think crack has an odor. So I'm automatically thinking, how would they even know that? But okay, keep going.
So the cops show up. They surround the car. They tell the guy to get out. So the guy gets out. You can't tell if the guy is Hispanic or black.
Mm-hmm.
He may be both. I'm not sure because, the name Ramos.
Mm-hmm.
But so anyway, they get him out of the car, and the guy starts holding his hands up, and he's saying, man, you scared me to death.
Yeah.
You scared me to death.
Uh-huh.
What are you doing? What are you doing? And they say, they're yelling at him, keep your hands up, blah, blah, blah.
Uh-huh.
And then he's pulling his shirt up, which is not white, like the call-in person said it was.
Uh-huh.
It was red, I think.
Uh-huh.
So he's pulling his shirt up, and he's making a circle, and then somebody shoots him with, I believe, a rubber bullet.
Uh-huh.
And the guy goes, ow, and he gets in his car, and he starts to drive off.
Because he didn't want to get
shoot
shot.
him.
Right.
They shoot him through the car and kill him.
Oh, no. He was trying to protect himself from being killed.
He was trying to, like any person would do. I don't get this stuff. I really don't.
Yeah, but here's the bad thing. It was
him.
6 police officers. They've all got guns.
And yeah.
And that if you try to flee a scene in a deadly weapon, which is a car, that they're going to shoot you. But his reaction was to leave.
That's ridiculous. We call these cars deadly weapons, and that's a catch-all.
My first instinct was whoever called him in, whatever they said. First, you're right. The T-shirt didn't match, and why would you need 6 police cars for that incident? You wouldn't. You would wait.
I have no idea.
That's
I know.
There's no deadly.
He wasn't armed. Nobody was armed except for the cops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really sad. I watched the whole thing yesterday, Tony. It was really sad.
Was it on the news? Where'd you watch it?
I watched it on the internet.
That is not, to me, that is complete police brutality and injustice. That wasn't reasonable in any way.
Yeah, you should watch the video.
That just scares me. But that's really sad.
It was really scary.
Okay, well, I'm going to watch that because the criminal defense attorney in me is saying that you don't need 6 police cars under those circumstances because no one's threatened. There's nobody being threatened.
I think there were 2 or 3 cars, but there were like 6 or 7 police officers.
You would, as a police officer, you would follow that car to their final destination and then watch. But there's no
right.
There's there's no serious. The only person that might get injured is an overdose in the car. So I don't see any. There's nobody being injured. There's no immediate harm to anybody other than you've got to. So that to me is bad, and this is why police officers get a bad name because I don't even think a rubber bullet needed to be at that point. The guy.
Oh, it didn't, Tony. You should watch the video. It was completely inappropriate.
That's really sad. Okay.
The guy was freaking out because he was so scared. I'm sure his blood pressure shot through the roof. Can you imagine the physical things that were going on in that guy's
Well, that could happen to you or
blood?
me. If somebody told us to get out of the car and we're like, wow, you really scared me. Because who knows what I'm doing in the car. I'm always looking at my phone or doing something. And I may be out at some weird hour of the night. So I'm always at some crime scene I need to get to the crime scene when the crime occurred so I can feel what's happening, so I can experience whatever was going on, so I can see if it's legitimate, if my clients are actually telling me the truth. So I'm out at weird hours of the night doing weird things a lot of times. And at the police, and I've been stopped by the police and by other residents saying, "What are you doing?" And it does scare me, but I haven't been shot over it. So that's completely inappropriate. And that family, I think, has unfortunately, they have a good case against I guess it would be the Austin police. Where did that happen?
Yeah, Austin Police Department.
Man, they're getting in trouble over there. Anyway, so
they sure are.
All right. Also, keep in mind that the 3-step process that we just talked about occurs after the analysis occurs after you've been arrested and charged with a crime for defending your property during a trial, and nothing is ever guaranteed when you put a verdict in the hands of a jury. That's very, very important. Juries can decide anything. Even this Ramos case could go either way in front of a jury, civil or criminal. Juries just see what they want to see. You just don't know. It's always a coin toss. And I'd like to say they always get it right, but the person winning always says they get it right. So you just don't know. It could be that not all the proper evidence has been admitted. Maybe it was something kept it out. So you just don't know. But going to a jury is always really difficult and very, very expensive. And the state funds it if it's criminal, but on the civil side, it's really difficult too for the person that's saying, I've been a crime victim. It's critical that you completely understand these legal concepts. If you have any questions about your rights to defend your property or any other self-defense law, don't hesitate to email us, to send us a message on our Facebook page. We've got a place where you can. So if you have any questions, you can ask us about it. But you've kind of listened to us go through it, and as a criminal defense attorney, and we also do civil. I'm not looking for more work. I'm busting at the seams. But these are the kind of situations that are. Well, you just told us about a really sad story, the Ramos situation. But at the same time, you've also been a victim of some crime issues, and you did the right thing. So keeping a level head, having a gun there to protect yourself, that's our Second Amendment rights. I think that we need to keep our Second Amendment rights, but also to, what is it they say about the Indians have a soft shoe? I forgot.
A big stick, soft shoe, something like that.
Yes, whatever that is. It sounds good to me. But you need to stop and wait. Stop, look, and listen. It's not like anything else. Sometimes you can't because you've got a fire, someone's firing after it. But in these situations where you think there's an intruder, you might be hurting a relative, or you might be hurting a neighbor that might be just checking in your car to see if somebody, maybe they're looking in the car for you. You know, you don't know. You just don't know what people are doing. I'm trying to think, have I ever looked in someone else's car before? I have. I would be the first to admit it. I've looked in someone's car before that's not my car. For one thing, it happened once because I thought it was my car, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get open. And that could happen. I've looked in...
Well, Tony, I was just going to say that happens. People, remember that that police officer in Dallas that walked into the wrong apartment and shot the guy about a year ago? I mean, people really do walk into the wrong apartments.
Yes.
They walk into the wrong houses, and they think they're theirs. You know, so there is always that. You know, and the problem with this reasonably prudent person or reasonable person is it's just a total legal construct that examines your actions after the fact.
Right.
And so our listeners need to understand that you're going to be held up to some reasonable standard that may not enter your mind at the time the crime is being
You're not in a
committed.
situation that is reasonable because this is something that's new. So what is reasonable to you at that time may be... It may be perfectly legitimate, and something bad happens, and you're going to be held accountable for it when it would not be reasonable in hindsight. So it's always best just to take a deep breath. And what I say to do, just like what you did, you kind of watch. You hide and watch. And a lot of these things you want to get out as quickly as you can. And I always say, don't confront somebody. Let them take your stuff. Just... If you think,
I think so too.
Just get out of there. You want to don't try to confront you because you don't know what you're up against. It's the unknown. All right, that leads to our next. Let me ask Station Manager Dick, how much time do we have? Because I wanted 5 minutes. Okay, we're going to briefly touch on the homeowners association's issues, and it's it has to do with putting no trespass signs in your yard. What are your rights to that? Because just like this came up because we've got in our a homeowners association, we've got some neighbors that they were being robbed. Basically, that's what looked like was going to happen, or rape, or some crime was being committed because some people followed my neighbor in to her home when the gate was opened, and the gate doesn't automatically close, and they came after her, I don't have all the facts, but I think it was a gun. And they were going to rob her in her nice late model car, and they live in a really, really nice home. And what saved her, though, was that she had 4 big dogs, like big dogs. And the dogs scared the guys, and they got back in their car and left. They were like, if they killed her, they were going to get die by dog. Okay. So, it wasn't, they just picked the wrong person. But they would have gotten away with it had her dogs not been there, because they could have accosted her, right, on her house and stolen, who knows what they really were up to. And so they posted large signs outside of their gate that said, trespassers will be shot on sight. Okay. And so our homeowners association has now told them they have to take the signs down because they're in violation or they'll be fined. And they're not budging. They're like, no, we're warning these people before they come in on our property that we're going to kill them if they do this again. And I think they're perfectly within their rights. But our homeowners association rules are, the covenants are not that clear. They are clear in the sense that they say you cannot have a sign except for a for sale sign out. And you can't even have a no trespass sign in our subdivision. No signs whatsoever unless you get approval. And our homeowners association, based on our last meeting, said, we're not going to give you approval. We're going to make you take the signs down. And so we're having a stalemate. And so I decided to look into that. And really, to the extent that, why can't you put a no trespassing sign up on your house? Because the law is not favorable to those that don't. And here's the law. What is the law regarding posting of no trespassing signs in Texas? In Texas, a trespasser who enters another's property without permission can be charged with criminal trespass only if he knew that the entry was forbidden. Sometimes this will be obvious, such as when a private residence is enclosed by a fence. a locked gate. I mean, these people could have said, in this instance, she said, follow us. I want you to fix my car. I mean, they may have some excuse. Her gate was open. She had just driven in. All right. She was way far away from cameras. I don't know if any of her security cameras could have picked it up. Our gate's 800 feet from our house. So our security cameras aren't going to pick up the in-between places. Well, they will now because we took care of that. But anyway, because for this exact reason, we're finding out all the time how we have to protect ourselves. Other times it would be less obvious, such as where there's no clear boundary or warning signs. The law in Texas is fairly strict about the need for proper notice and has clear rules about the posting of no trespass signs. So they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. If they don't, they come in, they can trespass unless you've told them not to. And can you prove you told them not to if there's no sign up? And your homeowners association won't let you post it. And there's no posting as you enter the homeowners association that says trespassers not allowed, because they're just not. Okay. So you're relying on your little voluntary homeowner association to protect you under these circumstances?
No kidding.
From your $3 million house? I think not. And so in Texas, a person commits a criminal trespass if he enters someone else's property without that person's permission, having received notice that the entry was forbidden. The last part of this definition is very important. If it's there to prevent an accidental trespasser from becoming criminalized, such as when an innocent hiker strays off the path or onto someone else's private land. If there's no warning notice, the trespasser cannot be accused of committing a crime. So they've got it out. If they're legitimately looking for bad news and they've been kind of scoping out your property, they can say, well, I didn't know there's no sign up. And this bodes against our neighbors who want to keep their sign up. All right. What constitutes notice of a trespass? As to how a trespasser is given notice, it depends on the type of property in question. Generally, a Texas landowner can give notice in one of 4 ways. Okay, so there's 4 ways they can do it. By telling the trespasser, get off my land. Now, it's going to be he said, she said, if you don't have any proof of that. I doubt you're going to have your cell phone ready to record if somebody's just startled you as you're getting out of your car on your 10-acre property that nobody can see from the street, right? The second way is by erecting a fence around the land that's obviously designed to keep intruders out. Well, on our property, we've got 10-acre lots, and they're not all fenced because they're large ranch lots. So this would not help them either. And it says there is this says there's 4 ways. One is to say it. One is by erecting a fence. I'm only seeing 3 here, but maybe I haven't hit it yet. By placing purple paint marks on posts or trees on the property. Now that I didn't know. I've never heard that.
I have never heard that either.
But it says purple paint trespass warning carries the same weight as traditional no trespassing signs, but they must be vertical lines at least 8 inches long and on a 1 inch wide and situated about eye level between 3 and 5 feet off the ground. They must be placed at an easy seen location. And it goes on and on. And Dick is giving me I've got to wind up sign, so we have to finish this next week again. We didn't get through with it. But I can tell you right now, we don't have post up. So
okay, well, guys, thanks for listening. We want to remind you to
serve God by serving others.
Have a great week, guys. We love you.
Today's show was recorded and broadcasted live on irlonestar.com, Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and all rights and ownership are reserved to Lone Star Community Radio. For more information regarding this program and Lone Star Community Radio, visit us online at irlonestar.com. Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station, serving the community with local programming on TV, radio, and online. If you enjoyed today's program, please support us by sponsorship or starting your own show. Contact us today by phone or text at 936-666-1084 or email the station at lscrstudios@gmail.com.